Jorge Luis Borges (1899–1986) is a blind poet and is an Argentine short story writer, essayist, poet and translator, born in Buenos Aires. His work embraces the characters of unreality in all literature as a most famous book, Genesis in 1944, and the Olive are complications of short stories interconnected with the common themes, including dreams, libraries, mirror, infinity, fictional writers, philosophy, religion and God. I am Roberto Olifano, this lesson writer, poet, storyteller, and journalist, born in the city of General Pinto, province of Buenos Aires, 1943. My books have been translated into several languages. From 1974 to 1985, I worked with Jorge Luis Borges. For reaching the success, aim and your destination only required is challenge, nothing else. For this, Borges is the live example. All the best. What was your first literary reading, Borges? I believe my first reading was Grimm's Fairy Tales in an English version. I was educated my father's library, perhaps more than by high school or the university. Can we talk about Dona Leonor, your mother? What an extraordinary person. I should speak about all offered kindness towards me. I will tell you a secret of mine. I feel somewhat guilty for not having been a happy man in order to have given her deserved happiness. I feel guilty. Perhaps I should have been more understanding of her. But I don't know. I suppose that it is true of all children that when our mother dies, we feel that we have taken her for granted as we do with the moon or the sun other seasons. We feel we have abused her. Before her death, it doesn't dawn on us. My mother was a diligent and a gracious woman who, I believe, had no enemies. Please forgive me, Borges, for asking you this. What is blindness to you? Well, now it is a way of life. A way of life that is not entirely unhappy. A writer and, I believe, generally all persons must think that whatever happens to him or her is a resource. All things have been given to us for a purpose. A writer and, I believe, generally all persons must think that whatever happens to him or her is a resource. All things have been given to us for a purpose, and an artist must feel this more intensely. All that happens to us, including humiliations, our misfortunes, embarrassments, all is given to us as a raw material, as a clay, so that we may shape our art. Homer wrote in the Odyssey, "The gods wrought splendid the skein of ruin for men, that there might be a song for those yet to be born." Well, it is the same idea. In one of my problems I said that humiliation, misfortune, discard were given to us so that we transmute them, so that we make from the miserable circumference of our life eternal works or words that expire to be so. A verse of Goethe comes to mind. Allies much were fern, all that is near become four. In this verse, Goethe refers not only to the sunset, but also so life. All the things leave us. In my case, the visible world has moved away from my eyes, surely forever. But, fortunately, it has been replaced by other things. My duty is to accept and, as far as possible, to enjoy this thing. I still continue pretending that I am not blind. I still buy books. I still go on filling my house with books. There is a theme I would like to speak about, the theme of books. Well, last night, in fact, I had very strange dream. I dream of the burning of great library, which I believe we have been the Library of Alexandria, with its countless volumes attacked by flames. Do you believe this dream have some meaning? Perhaps, Borges, could it be that you owe your readers a book on the history of the book? Have you ever thought of writing such a book? Dear me, no. But it is an excellent idea. It would be wonderful to write a history of book. I will keep it in my mind, although I don't know if an 83-year-old man can set such a project for himself. However, I now remember that Spengler, in this Decline of the West, predates my attempt, for it writes remarkable comments on books. In one of your essays, you quote the words of Bernard Shaw, "Every book worth being reread has been written by the spirit." Yes, I completely confirm with that notion, since a book goes beyond the author's intention. The author's intention is a meager thing, a fallible thing. In every book there's a need for something more, which is always mysterious. When we read an ancient book, it is as though we were reading all time that has passed from the day it was written to our present day. A book can be full of errors. We can reject its author's opinions, disagree with him or her, but the book always retains something sacred, something mortal, something magical which brings happiness. Borges, what is poetry? How do you define it? I believe that poetry is something so intimate, so essential, that it cannot be defined without oversimplified it. It would be like attempting to define the color yellow, love, and the fall of leaves in an autumn. I believe that poetry is the aesthetic act. That poetry is not the poem, for the poem may be nothing more than a series of symbols. I believe is the poetic act that takes place when the poet writes it, when the reader read it, and it always happens in a slightly different manner. When the poetic act takes place, it seems to me that we become aware of it. Poetry is a magical, mysterious, and unexplainable, although not incomprehensible event. It seems to me that we become aware of it. Poetry is a magical, mysterious, and unexplainable, although not incomprehensible event. If one doesn't feel the poetic event upon reading it, the poet has failed. Borges, what is important in the art of poetry is finding the precise words. To a great extent, those precise words are what elicit the emotion. I always remember that wonderful line in a poem by Emily Dickinson, which can exemplify this quiet that was gentlemen and ladies. The idea is banal. The idea of dust, the death of death. We will all the dust one day is a cliché, but what surprises is in the phrase gentlemen and ladies, which gives the magic and poetic quality. If she had written men and women, it would have failed as a poetry. It would have been trivial. But, finding the precise words, she wrote, the quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies. You have said that metaphor exists from our very beginnings. Could you expand on what concept, Borges? Yes, certainly. I believe that metaphors, if they are truly metaphors, exist from the beginning of time. But we express them differently. I have occasionally thought of reducing all metaphors 5 or 6 which seem to me to be the essential metaphors. What are those metaphors? Well, time and river, life and dreams, death and sleep, stars and eyes, flowers and women. This would be, I believe, the essential metaphors that are found in all literature, and then there are other that are the whimsical. I believe that the poet's task is to discover metaphors, even though they may already exist. Borges, there are people who speak of the disappearance of books, and they assert that modern developments in communications will replace them with something more dynamic that will require less time than reading. What do you think of that? I believe that book will never disappear. It is impossible that will happen. Among the many inventions of man, the book, without a doubt, is the most astounding. All the others are extensions of our bodies. The telephone, for example, is the extension as our voice. The telescope and microscope extensions of our sight. The sword and love are accessories our arms. Only the book is an extension as our imagination and memory. Well, you've taken a memorable passage that literature is a dream. It is a true. Literature is a dream, a controlled dream. Now I believe that all literature, almost everything we are and what we have been, also what we will be. Our past is nothing but a sequence of dreams. What difference can there be between dreaming and remembering the past? Books are the great memory of all centuries. Their function, therefore, is irreplaceable. If books disappear, surely history would disappear, and surely man would disappear. Thanking you. Welcome, sir. What was your first literary reading, Borges? I believe my first reading was Grimm's Fairy Tales in an English version. I was educated my father's library, perhaps more than by high school or the university. Can we talk about Dona Leonor, your mother? What an extraordinary person. I should speak about all offered kindness towards me. I will tell you a secret of mine. I feel somewhat guilty for not having been a happy man in order to have given her deserved happiness. I feel guilty. Perhaps I should have been more understanding of her. But I don't know, I suppose that it is true of all children that when our mother dies, we feel that we have taken her for granted as we do with the moon or the sun other seasons. We feel we have abused her. Before her death, it doesn't dawn on us. My mother was a diligent and a gracious woman who, I believe, had no enemies. Please forgive me, Borges, for asking you this.